Welcome to Absolutely Not, the live podcast series dedicated to providing examples of setting personal boundaries at work and the vocabulary needed to name harm in those spaces. I want everyone and anyone to set personal boundaries at work and create healthy relationships in the places that they want to be in. Thank y'all so much for being here today. I'm so grateful to everyone who keeps showing up to this community and allowing it to grow in this space. The vocab words for this episode are mindful, relationship, and mental health. These words and their definitions can be found on the resources page of my website. Feel free to reach out if there are words you'd like added. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp allows you to connect with one of 24,000 licensed therapists in a safe and private online environment. You pay a low, flat fee for unlimited therapy with your therapist. Visit www.betterhelp.com/absolutelynot for more information and to get 10% off your first month. Today's episode is titled, Challenging Your Mind to Work With You. Oh, I know, a vibe, some energy, and that energy is brought to us today by my guest, Tyler Riley. She is a mindset and lifestyle coach who specializes in guiding people to think differently through transformative mindfulness practices and programs. Oh my goodness! She helps clients prioritize their mental and emotional well-being in order to remove any blockages that may be in the way of them living fully. Wow. After missing pieces of her own life due to battles with her mind, she is dedicated to prove to her clients why focusing on the present is so impactful and to prove what's possible when you start noticing the narratives they speak over their own lives. Ooh, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I am shook. Oh my goodness. The bio alone and the title itself, Challenging Your Mind to Work With You. Why are we talking about the challenging over your mind today?
Oh my goodness, because mindset is everything. I can say that as a coach, but the thing is that, if our thoughts are, what am I trying to say? Like, can we back up?
Go ahead.
Because I don't know what just happened, but I had it and then I lost it.
You got it.
So, can you ask the question again?
Yeah, no problem. Why are we talking about challenging your mind to work with you?
Okay, so we're talking about this today because essentially mindset is everything, right? The way that we think influences our emotions, which influences our behaviors. And so what I'm hoping that we accomplish today is getting people to really see what it is that they're telling themselves, the narratives that they're building about, what they can do, what's possible for them in relationships, in life. Mindset is everything. So I'm excited to get into it.
Hey. Tyler, I just want to praise you real quick in your ability to say, can we back up? I work like in real time. That's a boundary. Like, no, I don't like how that went. Let me back up and say that again. I really appreciate it. In real time, setting boundaries is really hard to do. How did you get to being able to set boundaries in real time?
Oh my goodness, it's a daily practice. It is not easy. It is not easy. Especially like for me, I deal with a little bit of anxiety, both social and just kind of typical day to day. And sometimes that involves like overthinking about other people's responses to me and boundary setting and emotional experiences, all of that. And so I just realized at the end of the day, I'm trying to accomplish a goal. And so if that goal is going to be more easily fulfilled by me setting a boundary, then I got to do it. It starts with the small things, this, I feel very comfortable. So it's like easy for me to, just be my authentic self. But in some spaces, it's not so easy. So it's just about taking those kind of little opportunities to set a boundary and just implementing it and making them bigger because you deserve that space. You deserve that reservation. So, yeah.
You heard that? She said, I deserve it.
Yeah.
Okay. Go about your day, but I will be here knowing that I deserve the life that I want to live. And you talked about the spaces where you don't feel very comfortable to set boundaries.
Yeah.
What about those spaces make you feel uncomfortable?
Oh man, I think honestly, sometimes people's willingness to understand or not understand, I think that that plays a big part. Um, what else makes it? Did you say the environment? What did you say?
Mhm.
Uh-huh, that makes it more safe or not safe.
What about those spaces? What about those spaces makes it unsafe or makes you feel
Unsafe.
uncomfortable?
Yeah, yeah. If people, because boundaries are there for us, right? But sometimes people react to those in their own way. And so if someone has an expectation that like, for example, me, I am a recovering people pleaser, and they're used to me saying yes and showing up and doing all of this stuff. So in the times where I feel unsafe, it's probably when they're like, oh, I'm not used to you saying no. Oh, I'm not used to you showing up differently. And it's not about them, but still it can be uncomfortable to have to kind of explain your change and your shift to other people.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. And I think we don't talk about that enough. It is so hard for people you have been in relationship with to let them know, oh, I have turned a new leaf. I no
Mhm.
longer accept that type of behavior. And you talked about the willingness to understand. How
Yes.
do you know someone's willing to understand?
Yes, there is a very big difference between ability and willingness.
Oh,
And I feel like for real, I think willingness, in that it's like a curiosity, do you want to understand what I'm explaining to you? Are you compassionate in listening to me or in speaking to me, in holding space for me? Do you hold space? Are you willing to hear me out in the first place? Like that's a thing in and of itself. So yeah, there has to be a willingness because some people might have the ability, but they might not be willing because of what they're used to you showing up as.
what they are used to you showing up as. Oh my. Okay, I'll process that on my own time, as I always do. But I love that you shared those differences with us, the ability to. I feel like everybody has the ability to, but not everybody has the willingness to. When was the last time you had to say, okay, this person does not have the willingness to understand?
Oh wow. Yeah. Actually recently some friendships, some friendships I've had to reassess and just, recognize the way that I show up, recognize the way that they're able to show up and have been showing up. And I decided to, open a conversation because I never like to like just ghost people or just go on my own way. So I decided to open up a conversation to talk about, a new boundary, and they're used to me being that people pleaser, that person that just does whatever for approval. And I'm not that person anymore. I am actively changing every day. And so when I brought this conversation up, it was like, well, what do you mean? It was kind of an ego thing for them of
Mhm.
like, well, why is she operating like this now? Is it all my fault? Is it, so that brings kind of just ego into it instead of compassion, instead of understanding and pure intention now.
Mm.
So it takes work, but you just have to realize who's worth it, to work that stuff out with.
And I believe, I mean, okay, wait, hold on. Thank you so much for that. And I believe that's what boundaries do. When you set boundaries with people, you immediately start to assess, okay, this relationship was not what I thought it was. And now you
Mhm.
go down in priority or you go up in priority. We talked about before the ball rolling when you start to be your authentic self and when you start to learn every single day. You said growing every single day. What
Mhm.
was one of the first things you had to do to start that ball rolling?
Honestly, validating myself, because again, as a people pleaser, there are certain things that, you associate yourself with, certain habits, certain coping skills, all of these things. And having to work through that, heal through that, kind of get rid of some of that energy, it really takes showing up and being like, hey, like, your experience is valid. The experience you had before is valid. What you're experiencing now is valid, and you're allowed to change. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to change your habits, just validating and giving myself that self-compassion to be able to do that, right? Because it's new for everybody. It's new for the people I'm setting boundaries with. It's new for me as a person who didn't know how to set boundaries, or actually didn't think she was worthy of setting boundaries. Yeah.
And I will process that on my own time, as I know the rest of the audience will do as well. But we do want you to know that you are worthy of setting boundaries and having the expectations you need. In the workplace, has there ever been people who have shouted that with you and have supported you in your growth and ability to set boundaries?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I need to shout out my mentor. Her name is Tanya Montgomery, actually. I met her at my first full-time opportunity in Dallas, and she guided me through that whole thing because it was crazy. I instantly had to figure out, how to set boundaries at work. Me being a more sensitive person in a corporate environment, just kind of navigating that. She has helped me validate myself, show up for myself, understand that I'm worthy of these shifts that I'm trying to make. And she's still here to this day, like rooting for me. So I really appreciate her. She's amazing.
Oh my gosh. Worthy of the shifts I am trying to make, and somebody validating that you are worthy of the shifts you are trying to make. I think so often, especially in corporate space, you're told, no, you need to do this in order to make a shift. Like you have to give me some sort of value before you can pivot yourself. Are there any internal boundaries within yourself that you had to set to say, no, I am worthy enough to make a shift when I want to?
Oh, every day. Every day. I mean, certainly before, because when you first start trying to not be a people pleaser anymore, it's really like, oh goodness, so now what? Like, what do I actually like? What do I actually want to do for myself? Now, instead of thinking about everybody else's needs, and out of fear, might I add, thinking about all of that, now I'm having to kind of look at myself and say, hey, what are your actual needs? Not what you think other people want for once. What are your actual needs? And so internally, that is a daily, that is a daily practice of, showing myself self-compassion, giving myself real, evidence as far as how boundary setting is going to benefit me, because it is hard in the moment. So giving myself like a tangible I journal a lot, giving myself a tangible thing to look at and say, hey, how is this boundary going to serve you? You get to do this. You deserve to do this. Look at the outcome, the possible outcome, right? So it takes work, but it's worth it for sure.
Oh, I love that you said real evidence, because I think especially as a people pleaser, a recovering people pleaser, I was constantly waiting for somebody to be like, oh yeah, 1+1 does equal 2. I know that already. And if I write it down and say, and if I write it down multiple times, 1+1 equals 2, 1+1 equals 2, then when I come across another one with my one, I'll be like, oh no, that equals 2. And I know that already. Please move aside so I can set a boundary, or let's have a conversation moving forward. Have you ever had someone in the workplace tell you that 1+1 doesn't equal 2?
Yeah. My first full-time opportunity, I was working at an advertising agency, and it was just super intense for me. I mean, this is my first corporate experience. I am a young Black woman trying to figure out how to show up in it. So it's like, what does that look like? And I didn't realize that my personal people-pleasing traits were coming into the corporate space. So after I started to realize that, thanks to my mentor, my actual supervisor in that setting just we didn't connect. We weren't aligned. And I am still super sensitive. She was very like, let's just get to the work. And I was like, yikes, like this is really, excuse me, this is really difficult to navigate. And I also don't want to not show up as myself. So she was kind of guiding me to think that my sensitivity didn't have a place. My Yeah. Like my expression didn't really have a place in that particular space and in that particular role, which then led me to believe, dang, like, should I still be on this path even? And I mean, granted, I'm not, but still. But still, it's like to, have your supervisor kind of have that presence of like, just be strong, tough, don't be sensitive. And I feel like my sensitivity is my power. So it was really tough. So yeah, 1 plus 1 wasn't equaling 2 in that situation, but that's okay.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of not but I love that you talked about not having the place. There's a big push for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace currently. And so many
Mhm.
people are talking about bringing their authentic selves to work. But what you are pointing out is if you don't know what that looks like, it's really hard to have those proactive conversations before moving into that organization. So, say you had already known, I'm a very sensitive person. Sheila, whoever you are, we're not going to work out because you are go, go, go. Now that you know that you need to be proactive, what are some of the things that you tell people before starting to work with them?
Before working with like clients or
Or anybody that you become in relationship with, specifically professionally?
yeah, I mean, number one thing is be honest with yourself, because if you can't be honest with yourself, you're not going to be able to be honest and show up in that with others. So, being honest with yourself about your needs, about where you are in life right now, because things shift, we are constantly evolving. So, being honest about where you are currently so that you can know where it is that you want to go. We can't lie to ourselves about where we are, especially if we have a vision, because there's steps that we have to take. So yeah, I definitely recommend being honest with self, being open too. Like, open your mind. There are so many ways to reach your goals, to become who you're trying to become. So be present for that. Be present for those possibilities.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And I know that being present and being honest with yourself, it takes a lot of people. There are a lot of people in my support system, Tyler included. She's my
Mhm.
meditation coach, my guided meditation coach. I have a lot of people that are rooting for me, cheering me on, and helping me develop my skills to love myself every single day. Is there anybody that you'd like to shout out that's helping you hone those skills?
Oh wow. Can I shout out multiple people?
Yes.
Well, first and foremost, I want to shout out the creator God for me, because like there are many times where I don't see myself as I would like to, but I always know that there's a higher power, excuse me, that created me, that does see me in that light. So that's great. I also want to shout out one of my close friends. His name is L, and he pours into me daily, reminding me that what I do is purposeful, reminding me that I can show up and evolve and it's okay. Just pouring a lot of love into me, and I really appreciate that as well. Yeah, those are the two people I'm gonna shout out for right now. Yeah.
Okay, whoever else is, hey, if you need another best friend. But anyway, um, I appreciate you breaking down why those people are so great in your life, especially the best friend. Like, somebody needs to be pouring into you. Of course, we're the first people that are pouring into ourselves, but find people around you who are willing to give some of their sauce to you. If you don't have enough sauce for the plate, I'll leave it at that. But as we close out today, could you share with us top 3 tips that you wanted to know before you moved into organizations that people can use when they move into organizations?
3 tips for boundary setting,
Yes,
right?
please.
Oh man. Um, Not to sound redundant, but know that you deserve it. I know we go into these spaces and we wonder if we're good enough to occupy them. We wonder if we're going to perform well and all of that stuff. But in order to do that, you have to feel safe. So know that you're worthy of setting boundaries, of speaking up, of being authentic. Like, that's the only way you're going to find the most aligned opportunities for you. So I think that's my tip number one. That was like a lot in one, but that's okay. So tip number two, um, let's see, for setting boundaries, tip number two. I'm going to go with be okay with discomfort, because again, sometimes setting boundaries is hard and scary and you don't know how people are going to react to it. But again, you deserve it, and just be okay with that discomfort, because eventually you're going to see the kind of return on doing that. You're going to see the benefit of that. And then lastly, I would say practice. Like, please practice with the smallest things. If you need to set a boundary with yourself for how much you go shopping or whatever it needs to be, that can be your playground to practice, because it is hard, again, to do those bigger boundary setting. But you deserve it, so you got to put in some practice so you can know how to do it moving forward.
Oh, those are amazing, especially the discomfort part. People don't tell you when they talk about self-love, self-care, even on this show, we talk about the discomfort that's going to come from, like, people may not like your boundary, but some of that discomfort is in here internally. We're like, am I doing the right thing? Am I worthy of this? But Tyler Raleigh has told y'all today that you most certainly are. So please soak it in. Ooh. Also, okay, practice. Somebody should have told me that. Somebody definitely should have told me that, because I was not practicing before I implemented, and I was just chewing people's heads off, kind of going my way. Not to say that that's not a type of way of learning, but I would definitely encourage everyone to practice on your own time, and maybe practice with someone you feel safe. Shout out Elle again, like call that person and practice with them. Thank you so much for sharing that. Are there any last minute tidbits, or where can people find you, or projects that you're working on that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yes. Well, number one, thank you so much, Katrina, because I just love what you do. I love the way you show up. I think you're amazing. So let me just give you your props because we got to hold space for that. As for me, I am just ready to help people understand that they are deserving of the life experience they want. And it starts with thoughts. It starts with navigating your emotions. I want to teach some people how self-compassion can actually save them. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram at Ty the Wordsmith. You can find my podcast at The Nude Pod, both on Twitter and Instagram as well. That's The Nude Podcast. I am taking clients for both meditation and mindset coaching. So you can find all of that information at tythewordsmith.com. And yeah, I'm ready to live.
Yeah. And I hope y'all are too. And I'll tell you what, as a client, I am a reoccurring client with Tyler. Book it right now. Do it right now. Her information will be in the show notes. Please book it, because just having someone who's able to walk you through the process and kind of figure out the new tools that you need on this journey, it's amazing to have. So thank you so much, Tyler. Once again, this has been Absolutely Not. I'm your host, Katrina Stroll, and I just want you to keep setting those boundaries and saying absolutely not to anything unaligned. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Absolutely Not. Your support means the world to me. You can always further support the show by leaving a review or visiting the Support the Mission page on my website, www.katrinastroll.com. My website is also where you can register for upcoming live episodes, watch amazing past episodes of Absolutely Not, and buy Absolutely Not merch. Yay! Until next time, keep setting those boundaries and saying absolutely not to anything unaligned. See you next time.